Welcome in Metro Councilman Darryl Hurst. Welcome back, man. How you been?
Man, I'm doing great. Every time I come here, man, it starts my day off with a smile. So, y'all listen to the best radio show in Baton Rouge,
I
Brian
appreciate
Haldane.
that. I
Absolutely.
appreciate that greatly. Um, we're going to get into the budget in just a minute, but as we were coming back in from break, you hyped for this weekend's Bayou Classic?
I am. For the people that don't know, I'm a former Jaguar, Pete Richardson linebacker. And the great thing about it is Coach Dooley and the staff at Southern, they were my coaches under Pete. They were assistant coaches at the time, man. So, when they came back, it was a big family reunion. So, I'm excited for the weekend.
I mean, on the field, I know the hype around the weekend is about all of the festivities on the weekend, but on the field, I don't want to give bullet to the board, but it appears that Southern should have no problem this weekend.
Well, I will tell you, I would agree based on the record, but it's like LSU, Alabama. Regardless of what the record is, you expect to win.
Yeah.
You throw the records out of the window. So this weekend, if they come out and play like they've been playing, then my expectation is a win. But it's always a coin toss with a Bayou Classic.
Now, a win this weekend would set Southern back up for a rematch against Jackson State, which I'm sure. Okay, on Facebook you can see it on radio. I don't know if you can actually hear the councilman's eyes roll.
I will say Deion Sanders has done a great thing for HBCU football.
Yeah,
he's shown that talent can be in multiple leagues and that they can make an impact both on and off of the court. So we were excited to have him come to the swag.
No, absolutely, and
that's my nice way of saying.
Let's get him another job to get him out of there, right?
Florida State has that opening coming soon.
You're right. All right, let's get down to business. Mayor President Sharon Weston Broome proposing an increase to next year's budget by more than $45 million. Y'all are going to have a lot to look at in the coming weeks. The budget pretty much is going to be the topic du jour of every council meeting up until. So walk me a little bit through the process. What do you have your eyes on?
So what they've done recently is we've set up several different budget meetings. We have a couple more to come. And each department that we feel needs to kind of be inspected, they come before us, they present their budget, they talk about projects, we get the opportunity to ask questions. And here's the deal. When you look at a department like Public Works, and you see an increase in their budget, you also look at the housing market. They're buying those same materials that you're buying your house with, and a house that, and I'm just throwing these numbers out there, that may have cost $150,000 2 years ago, maybe $200,000 right now to build based on even drywall or plywood. I think plywood is like $30 a sheet now. At one point it was like
it's ridiculous.
$15 before. So you multiply that times what we buy from a city parish standpoint, and the numbers are going to inflate. So when taxpayers see the numbers going up, there's a justifiable reason for that. I mean, everything's inflated. Your groceries are inflated, and just all other supplies, the same ones we get for city parish.
Okay, but there's not a direct one-to-one match for inflation versus increase. We're seeing increases beyond that. So, and like you said, it's got to be broken down department by department.
So when you look at city parish, and I've had this fight all the time with different departments when I hear excuses about we just don't have the manpower. To me, it's an excuse. Mm-hmm. And I'll tell you what I'm working on now. I am working on doing a pay study with the city of Baton Rouge. And I've requested it to be approved by the mayor's office and requested that it go through HR, and it seems like it's going to do well, to show the disparity in what we pay people in the city government versus what they get paid in other municipalities of similar size and the industry that takes our talent. So when you have a 200-man gap in DPW, when you have a 125-man gap in the city police workforce, and then other gaps all over city parish, it's hard to retain and have sustainability in the workforce. And so that pulls this huge gap. And so anytime you see city numbers rise, it's a question. But corporate dollars rise every day. The difference is we're not a profit center. So we lean on the people in the city of Baton Rouge to make that decision, which is what I would like to do next year, is once the study comes back in, take it out to a vote to the people and say, hey, this is what it's going to take to get us a sustainable workforce. So your 311 ticket doesn't last out there 4 years. Okay. If you don't want ditches, dirty streets, a workforce is getting, and the mayor's done a great job in providing an increase, by the way. And that is part of the inflated number that you see on there.
Yeah.
Is the 5% increase moving forward. but you're going to have to make a decision. You have to invest in your city, because when you invest in your city can invest back in you. When you don't invest in your city, then when you have dirty streets and you call us and you need a pipe repaired and you're number 2,045 on the list and you just have to wait in line to get it fixed. And that was the one of the immediate things I learned about city government. So when we make some of these plans, so we always have to think forward. How can we grow as a city? So when you see some of these numbers are based on initiatives to grow and make Baton Rouge a better place.
Yes.
So the library's numbers. They're building a bunch of buildings to make sure that our kids have a high literacy rate in Baton Rouge. Now they do have a $52 million surplus. And look,
so you're about to get to one of the triggers right there. You know it.
They do have a $52 million surplus. But the one thing that I brought to them is with this money, we talk about literacy rate because education equals income, which equals outcome, right? Talk to you about the LIVE program, some of the initiatives going in some of the underserved and forgotten areas. Take those mobile buses into those communities consistently. This community on Tuesdays and Thursdays, this community on Monday and Wednesday, so that people who don't have access, homes that don't have high literacy rates, have access to these resources. So let's use them. Let's use them for the good of the people.
Okay, but what do you do with the leftover funds? Because the budget in a year where you are going to rebuild Goodwood does not need to be the budget in a year where you're not going to rebuild Goodwood, and yet the funding stays the same because it's dedicated. And let me channel my inner Dwight Hudson here. How can we not reach in and just say, okay, let's move some over because DPW needs more help right now?
Well, I do agree in moving some over. So I'm looking at that, breaking it down to figure out how we do that. But they've also reduced their millage too. So they have reduced the millage. So they realized that there was an excess, and they have reduced their millage. But what we don't want to do is handicap their ability to grow. So we have to find that fine balance.
And the other part of that is the library and the library system and the bookmobiles and whatnot. They are a help, but they're not. You're never going to see a 1-to-1 correlation of a higher high school graduation rate because of a library. It's a
I disagree.
It's a factor in an equation, but there's no way you could pin it down on that one thing.
I disagree, because if you look at private school and public school in Baton Rouge, my kids, my son is attending both. He's at U High now, and I see the difference in the education rate of holistically of the homes that are able to send their kids to those types of schools. So when the kids go home, the parents can help them. A lot of times with EBR, you may have a single mom who's working 2 or 3 jobs who is educated, which is not there. You may have a dad who's working 2 or 3 jobs, or you may have a single mom or a single dad who doesn't have that education to be able to help their kid, especially with Common Core math. I send my kid to a tutor because I was not taught Common Core, and trying to relearn it. And I'd rather just
the frustration there.
So for that reason, expect someone who doesn't have a high literacy rate already. How do we break that generational cycle? We use the bookmobiles to go in those communities to create those tutoring programs where the kids are versus asking somebody who doesn't have money to ride public transportation and doesn't have a vehicle at home to come out. So I won't give them an excuse. They are an intricate part to closing that gap in literacy rate in our community.
So let me restate, because I think we're on the same page, just saying different things. There's no way to put an actual ROI on it. There's no way to look at, take Jimmy and Betty and say they got this GPA because of the bookmobile versus if they hadn't had the bookmobile, where their GPA would have been, because there's so many other factors that go into it. They're vital. I completely agree they're vital. But in order to be able to put something definitive on it, that gets a lot more difficult.
Well, you'd have to. It's all about data, right? So you'd have to have a form or see where they are before the program starts, and then see where they are after the program starts.
Multiple variables.
We can talk about how it helped, though, because it'll end up helping in the classroom. Yeah. Because when your literacy rate is higher, you learn better in the classroom, which means you don't need as much supplemental. So it goes hand in hand.
Yes, it does. All right. The biggest item that's going to come under any level of scrutiny is, how do you make up for the stormwater utility fee that we're not going to have? Because if we were told it was an absolute must, we had to have it. And so how do we make up for that? And what kind of scrubbing of the budget is going to be done to find the money within what's already there moving into next year?
So what I just talked to you about, which was doing an HR pay study, I think it's completely different than doing a stormwater fee. And so when I was asked for my suggestion to help close that gap, right, because there's a gap and there's a real stormwater issue, MS4 issue. So none of that was a lie. That was my suggestion, because a lot of the money that was put in there was for human capital, manpower. Right? But if we do a pay study, and some of those jobs that were earmarked specifically for that stormwater, won't do all of them, but we'll close the gap on the workforce and not a project. It's a difference. And so now we have street sweeper workforce, or we have a pipe maintenance workforce that's consistent, and we don't have to constantly outsource it. And so some of those jobs that would have been done to clean the ditches out and those things that we were potentially outsourcing that were a part of that stormwater fee, we can now bring in-house for high-paying jobs that typically would go to industry for those workforce initiatives outside.
Is outsourcing not cheaper?
Just depends on how you look at it and what that position is, but outsourcing doesn't get your 311 calls fixed in 20 days that you want them done.
Well, no, but I'm talking, those are for the bigger projects, the bigger scale projects.
Well, it just depends on how you look at it. And,
okay.
and we want, the other part of having an in-house workforce is that we can redirect them when they are put more tasks on them than a specific project. You're getting paid to do 1, 2, and 3, but we also have 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 need to be done. And so as long as we have that workforce, if 1, 2, and 3 is completed, then we can redirect them to close those other gaps and those other numbers. When it's a contract, you don't necessarily have that ability to do that because they're project focused and they bid out to do a specific job.
Got about 3 minutes left with Metro Councilman Darryl Hurst talking about the upcoming budget talks. What other areas of the budget do you think are going to come under any kind of scrutiny? Because I know another $12 million for fire department. That's a big thumbs up. $15 million for police department. That's a big thumbs up. I mean, like resoundingly popular additions.
Okay, yeah, absolutely.
No, I don't see those as being problematic in any way. Like,
no, you get a lot of pushback about the police and the money that they're getting and scrutiny there, but I'm definitely in support because when I dial 911, it's like having an insurance policy, right? You hate to pay that premium every month, especially when you're not using it, but when you need it, you're glad that it's there.
No, absolutely.
And so police force is a huge one. The fire department, nobody hates the fire department. The fire department is coming for one reason, to save your life.
Yeah.
And so those are some happy places. I'm going to tell you one place where I got to take a deeper dive is Head Start.
Okay.
Head Start is a huge piece of the puzzle in terms of building a foundation for the kids that end up with those challenged literacy rates.
Yes.
And so we need higher pay for staff there. I have not gotten to that deep point yet.
Okay.
But that's one area of focus for me, because if we can focus on Head Start and improving it, that does roll over to make sure that there's a great foundation when they go through K through 12. So,
and this is another one. This goes right back to the educational thing, which can make generational changes. But I think the question, and when you do take that deep dive, I want you back on here to talk about that specifically. When you can make generational changes by improving education, but you've got to be able to show a return on that investment. We can't just dump money into it to dump money into it.
Well, here's the deal. You got, when you pay more, essentially, if you go to a restaurant and you're buying $100 steak, you expect the service to support it, right?
Oh, yes.
Okay, when you go to somewhere and you're buying a $15 steak, you can't. In your mind, there should be no comparison. There shouldn't be.
Right.
Okay, so I want a $100 teacher in a classroom versus a $15 an hour teacher or a $17,000 a year teacher. You know, I want my teacher to be able to have great subject-verb agreement and be able to teach it as they speak. So sometimes when you pay less, you get what you pay for.
No, absolutely.
And I believe that not just here. I don't control the school system, but I believe they need a raise as well, because our talent is fleeing our city and going outside to other municipalities that are paying higher.
Yeah, and that's where I'm talking about, though, is paying more and getting what you pay for once you pay more. In the meanwhile, we're just straight up out of time for today. Metro Councilman Darryl Hurst, we always appreciate the time. Have yourself a great Thanksgiving.
Same to you, man. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone out there.
Absolutely. We got to take a break for CBS.